Hi guys, today I'm here with Ellie Rose Giddings, commercial actress, model, someone that's usually on the other side of the camera, and also someone that's known as a digicam girly.
That's me. Hello.
Also, I'm here with Brad Brocque. Brad is the OG Pentaxian, the president of the Maitland Camera Club, and the head of the Northern Federation of Camera Clubs, a longtime Pentax user and supporter. Brad, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Clem.
Ellie and Brad, you guys have both had a bit of time with the new Pentax 17 camera.
Yep.
Have indeed.
It's a good camera.
Ellie, if we start with you, how did you come across the camera to begin with, and what were your initial impressions?
Well, a friend of mine told me about this camera and I wanted to get my hands on it really badly and I wanted to shoot with it. I was really excited that it was half frame, so you could take so many photos within one roll of 36 shot film.
Had you shot with film before?
Yes, but not just here and there over the past few years. It gets expensive, but that's why I like this, because it's, you can get.
Are you a big camera shooter normally? I mean, I know you're known as a digicam girly. You're more digital shooter?
Bit of both, film and digi, but more so digi recently, but big film girl back in the day.
Yeah, wow. Well, we're gonna have to get back and explore that a little bit more. And Brad, we know you've been shooting with Pentax for many, many years. You want to give us a bit of background on how you have been shooting with Pentax and then how you came across a Pentax 17 and your initial thoughts?
I started using Pentax in high school, K1000, like a lot of people. Bunch of friends got together and bought me an ME Super for my 21st birthday. And I've still got that camera and I'm still shooting it.
Oh, wow.
Once digital came around, I obviously jumped ship and went to digital, and you guys putting this in my hand has been a revelation, because it's been many, many years since I've picked up a film camera. The interesting thing I found was it slows you down and makes you a lot more methodical about your shots. Because there's no consequences to pushing the button, I think digital makes you a lot more slap happy about your photography. This makes you consider what the outcome is going to be before you begin, and then you've got to work towards it.
So how long was your break between using film, converting to digital, and then coming back to the Pentax 17?
I would say it would have to be, I think 2007 was when I picked up an IST-DS.
Oh, yeah.
And
taking us back a long time.
Yeah, and started shooting that.
Quite the history you have, Brad, and we're going to talk about that more. But just to get into the nitty-gritty here, Ellie, how long did you have to shoot with the Pentax 17? What were you initially trying to shoot, and how did some of your results come out?
I wanted to shoot some street photography. Some of my friends, a couple of my friends are models, and also
handy to have good subject matter like that.
Yeah. And I also wanted to get some photos of myself as well.
Naturally.
I went out and shot some things, and I just went crazy because I could shoot as much as what I wanted to.
And are you shooting in black and white or colour? What do you mainly shoot in?
I did one roll black and white, one roll colour. Really happy with the black and white ones. They're beautiful.
Yeah, they do. I'm seeing a glimpse of both of yours with the black and white. They really look very nice.
Yeah.
Brad, what about you? What did you think you were going to shoot with the Pentax 17? What did you end up shooting, and how did it come out?
It was interesting when I first got the camera. I sort of looked at it and I thought, it's because I'm used to an SLR, right?
Of course.
A bigger, heavier camera, and I thought it looks a bit like a toy, but once you get it in your hand, it feels quite solid. And once you start using it, you realise that, again, Pentax have done what they usually do, and that is they've made something that's eminently practical. You know, it's got everything you need, exactly where you need it, and this is a tool that's been crafted, I think, for somebody who wants to dip their toe into film. There's an awful lot of camera club people that have never ever shot film because they've only come to it in the last decade or 15 years or so. This is a really, really good jumping in point, because the camera actually, even though it looks very manual, it actually is doing a lot of the hard work behind the scenes for you, which is really, really good. The zone focusing system on it is, again, if you're used to old school SLR focusing, you sort of think to yourself, well, I don't know that I'm going to like this.
Yep.
But after a while, you sort of realise how easy it is for somebody who's never done manual focusing to actually nail a whole bunch of shots. So
Yeah, that's what I thought as well with the focusing. I never used zone focusing before myself, and I was a bit sort of hesitant. But
Yeah,
it's really easy to get
That's
the
the
photos
same as
in
me. I was
focus.
like, oh no, I don't think they're going to be in focus. I'm just trying to guess how far, and they actually all turned out. So yeah.
yeah, well, there is actually some auto-focusing going on. If you change the zone and you have the camera switched on and you hit the button, you can see that there's a real slight movement in the lens. So the camera is actually doing some work in the background, which is interesting. So I put my first roll of film was Ilford HP5, which is a 400 ISO, quite a grainy, grungy looking type of film. And I thought the camera did really well. I've got some shots here that we can have a look at in a minute. And then I ran out of film out in a country town, and I ended up putting in some no-name colour film. Again, 400 ISO,
Yep.
and it did pretty well with that as well. So, and I've got a colour shot here that we can have a look at. And these I then printed off an inkjet printer onto my favourite paper at the moment, which happens to be Ilford as well. It's smooth pearl fine art paper, and I just think it goes beautifully with the files that come out of this camera. So
Great combination there.
yeah,
Nice recommendation.
Yep, it is. So
And Ellie, what did you, in terms of initial impressions, what do you think of the aesthetics of the camera itself?
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful camera. Lots of my friends were like, "Oh, yeah."
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, and I just like the weight of it as well, because I do have a few film cameras at home that, you know, if I was to just throw them in my handbag, it's too heavy. This is like the perfect weight. Yeah.
Yeah, nice weight for traveling
Yep.
around, being portable, and
Yep. But it's also very like, you know, like if you knock it around a little bit, it's gonna not break.
do you know what I'm finding too, Clem, is even when I'm out shooting with digital,
Yep.
so I've got a K1, which is quite a chunky sort of camera.
yes,
This fits in the pocket of my jacket. So it becomes a second shooter, and if I haven't got time to set up, I can whip this out, get the shot. It's going to be a really, really great street photography camera. So
yeah, I think I like the street photography application too. And as you said, Brad, not a substitute for digital, but a sort of another addition to
an
shooting
addition
in digital.
to it, an add-on, you know. But the fact that it's light enough to put it into your jacket pocket and not really notice it, it can become almost ubiquitous, like your phone. Right?
Yeah, you're much
So
more inclined to use it then.
It can really, in a lot of cases, replace your phone camera, but you get that really nice film aesthetic. You know?
Absolutely.
So one of the first things I noticed coming from digital, I thought to myself, I've got to buy the biggest film I can because it's only 36 shots. Being a half frame, it's 72 shots.
Yes.
And in the end, what I've ended up doing is buying the smallest rolls of film I can buy, so I can chop and change the film, because you're getting, 20. A roll of 24 gives you 48 shots.
I'm the same as you, Brad.
And
It's
that's a lot.
It's a lot of shots to go through.
It's a lot. It's surprising how long it took me to get through my first roll of 36, which is 72 shots. Right. I mean, look at the pile of photographs that Ellie's got, and how many rolls of film is that?
That was 2. It's like a thick.
Yeah,
And
I
that's,
mean, it's surprising how many shots you get out of that roll. So,
Because that is always one of the fears with digital. With film as opposed to digital, you don't have unlimited shots like you get with digital. But to actually get through 72 shots takes a long time.
Yeah,
and you get to the point where you actually want to develop it and see them sooner.
I'm used to putting a card into my digital camera and having the number 500 come up.
Yes,
or 600.
absolutely.
And you sort of go, and you don't have to worry about it again, right? As soon as you look at it and you go 36, or gee, that's not many, but it turns out that it's actually a lot more than you think.
So hot tip from the team, get 24 exposure, then you only have to go through 48 shots.
Yeah, well, I would get the smallest rolls that you can. Yeah. They used to do 12s, but they don't do 12s anymore that I've found. I've found some of the cheaper films do 18 shots.
Yep.
But again, having shot some cheaper no-name film and the Ilford stuff, I'd be sticking with either Ilford or Kodak or one of the better brands.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. Makes a huge difference. The film chemistry is very important.
I was I accidentally, with my first colour roll, I overexposed the film. I didn't wind it all the way back, and I cried. I was so upset. I was like, no, I'd gone here, there, everywhere, taken so many different photos of friends, but I ended up getting like these really cool, should I?
The artistic flair.
Yeah, the like beautiful colours.
Light leaky.
Yeah, and
flares.
like this one as well is really cool.
Well, you've got so many good shots. You've actually framed up the photographs brilliantly.
Thank you.
Particularly your portrait shots are great.
Yeah, I've got one of my friend Bella, who is also a model, and then my beautiful self.
Ooh, buying cheese?
Buying cheese.
In the cheese aisle.
And then me and my best friend Sian in black and white, which I love those.
You can really capture the emotions in film, in black and white, you and your friend embracing there.
And I love this too.
That is cool.
Yeah. Frosty morning. But yeah.
Oh, you got some great shots there.
Thanks.
And Brad, also, you got some standout images that you brought in.
Yeah, I've only brought a couple of images in. You probably
We love that one. The old barn.
That's an old barn out the back of Morpeth. It's often photographed. It's a pale blue colour, and it's normally photographed in colour by local people. But the HP5 really gives it a gritty.
It looks stunning.
Yeah, it's
really
beautiful.
gritty feel. So I included that one. These next two. This is a millstone out the back of Morpeth in the Hunter Valley, and I actually photoshopped this one a little. And this is a piece of graffiti carved into an old painted iron girder, and this one's got some beautiful texture, some really, really crunchy looking detail in it. And I actually photoshopped this one as well. And the reason I included them is just to show, so this one, you can see the letter F on the skull's forehead. It actually had quite a nasty swear word.
Yeah.
And I thought being a family-friendly show where we probably don't want that. But the reason I included the Photoshop images was just to show that once you get the film developed, most of the time you have the option of having your negatives,
Yes.
or having digital files, or having both, and having prints or not. Now, I elected not to have prints. I've got the negatives, but I also got the digital files, right? Once you get them onto your computer, you can then Photoshop them. This one is a millstone, and it sort of had almost a religious feel to it. So I photoshopped this arm of the millstone a little bit longer. Normally they'd be symmetrical because it sort of looked a lot more like a Christian cross. And I thought millstone, cross, it has there's some symbology there that
Yes.
I thought was interesting. So
Well, it's a great tip there, Brad, that you can actually edit the images once they're scanned on Photoshop like you would a normal digital file.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Because there could be this idea that you shoot on film and it's just what you get in the camera. You got to get everything in the camera, and you can't do any post production yourself on your computer like you would with a digital file. But that's not actually the case.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you've got exactly the same flexibility that you've got with your digital files, and the fact that most of the labs will digitize it for you in the one step means that you don't have to worry about doing it yourself. You don't have to worry about cleaning your negatives and all that, and
Yeah, I got my film developed, scanned and printed at Rewind Photo Lab. And when I got them on my phone, there was a couple of pictures where there was a little pimple.
Yeah.
So I just touched that up, just touched it up on my phone, easy done. So yeah.
Yeah, so you did a bit of editing on your phone with digital files.
Yeah.
So Ellie, what about in terms of ease of use of the camera? Was it as easy to use as you expected?
At the beginning, it was. It took a little while to get used to, but I think maybe 10 to 20 shots in, I was like, I've got this. Yeah.
I think what I found is that you're not sure how your initial roll is going to turn out, but when I saw my initial roll, I was sort of pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, that looks better than what I thought. This is actually pretty easy to use camera.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I was like, oh, I don't know what it's going to be like. It's going to be me testing it out. And I was trying to remember, what settings I'd put it on for what photos. But so I could, when I used the next roll, I could remember if they were good. And yeah, they all turned out really good. So yeah.
It slows you down and makes you a lot more methodical if you're an experienced photographer. The idea of shooting film, it makes you systemize what you're doing a little more. And I think overall you end up improving your photography because you're thinking about the end result prior to pressing the button and what's the roadmap? How am I going to get, like, in your mind's eye, you've got an idea about how you want the photo to be, right? And then you've got to work backwards and work out how am I going to achieve that goal. And it makes you a better photographer. A more considered photographer, let's say. The other thing I noticed when I was out in bright light, you probably haven't realised, but if you're not looking through the lens, and I've been shooting SLR and DSLR cameras for decades, right? So I'm used to, if I can see what's going on, my lens cap is off, right?
I took about 10 photos with the lens cap on because I'd quickly saw some stray cats and I was like, oh, quick, get it out, don't scare them. And I've shot all these photos.
Yeah, well, I did exactly the same thing. Now this camera, when it's on and you've got the lens, let's put the lens cap back on. When you got the lens cap on and you push the button, it has some little warning LEDs in the corner of the viewfinder.
Yeah,
the disco lights that flash. But I found that if I was out in bright light,
I didn't see it either.
I didn't see it, and it took me a little while to train my brain to actually check the disco lights all the time, right? So I did the same thing. I took quite a few shots and then went,
yeah,
bugger,
mine were all in bright light
I've got to go back and redo that shot, you know?
Yeah.
But once I'd sort of got past that little hurdle, and that's really just muscle memory, right? Once I'd got past that, the actual shooting experience has been fantastic. If you walk around with it in the P mode without the flash on, all you got to do is just click, boom, you're in.
Well, my tip for avoiding taking a shot with the lens cap on is just put a little filter on the front of the lens.
Yep.
On the front of mine, it's a very small filter thread.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got a 40.5 mil Kenko filter on the front of mine, and that just means that I'll give that to you, I don't really put the lens cap on much.
You don't use it.
Because I just put the filter on. It's a set and forget accessory.
Okay.
Yep, that's a great tip.
And
That's such
then you
a
don't have to
good
worry about it.
idea.
Yeah,
That
so
is such a good idea.
it's just so handy, and also protects your lens, of course, and you never have to worry about taking it off.
You could even put some Vaseline on that
Yes,
to
that's
make an
true.
effect or different things without wrecking the lens of the actual
Yeah,
camera.
you can have a little fun with it and
yeah.
throw caution to the wind.
The other thing that I found, which I thought was quite funny, is there's a little window on the back. So when you load your film, you tear the end of the box off and you can slide that in, and it tells you what film you've got in the camera. Some of the Ilford film I was using was a black sort of a box with the white writing on it, and I'd have this on the seat next to me in the car, and I kept thinking that I'd left the camera turned on.
Yeah.
That it was the back screen of a digital camera switched on, and I'd pick it up and go, oh, that's right, it's film.
Yeah.
It's not left on. So
I tricked a couple of my
and I
friends.
did that over and over again.
I tricked a couple of my friends, but there was nothing in the back of it. I took some photos and I'm like, oh, you want to see them? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I told you it was film. We can't check until later.
It is classic. People have been so trained in digital
Yeah.
now that they can't even remember what it was like to have film. And people often say, as Ellie said, oh, can I see the shot once you've taken it?
I don't know how many times I took shots and then looked at the back of the and I caught myself doing it over and over again. It's a muscle memory thing, right?
Instinctive.
You just, oh, that's right, it's film, right? But having said that, the anticipation of waiting until you get the pictures emailed to you or the shots is also something that I'd forgotten. There's a perverse joy in that as well.
Is.
It's so exciting. The joy of receiving film back is like nothing else.
For each of you had a bit of experience and time with the Pentax 17. What next from Pentax would you be looking forward to in the future?
I would love to see a DSLR, obviously, and something simple and manual.
An SLR.
An SLR, yes. See, I've done it again. An SLR with maybe a simple program mode, but lots of nice manual controls, like they used to do with their ME Supers and the MX and all that sort of stuff. They had a digital camera. I think they stopped production in 2010 or 2011, which was an MX-1, which was a camera this size, but a digital camera. Awesome street photography machine, and I've been looking for one secondhand.
Okay.
Just recently, and interestingly, they're worth a lot more now than they were when they were new because they've become a bit of a cult classic.
Yeah.
I think something like that would be good if you're listening, Pentax.
Good tip.
I was going to say that as well, like some kind of a digital version of this, possibly with some settings on there that would give you a film look.
Yeah.
But not necessarily, you don't have to use them all the time. But yeah, with like maybe a little flippy screen that flips up, maybe for vloggers or.
Well, that's pretty much what the MX-1 was. That's what you're talking about. Right?
Yep.
But I think Pentax really need to be commended for going down the road of reviving brand new film cameras because they're right. I mean, I've been following they've released a series of YouTubes about why they're doing it and how they're doing it and all that sort of stuff. And I think their whole idea of we're not in it to make a huge profit, but the engineers that we had that were making the clockwork mechanical cameras are now getting older and they won't be with us forever. So mentoring a group of young engineers and teaching them the trade, so to speak, I think is really important for photography as a whole.
So, Ellie, for the younger demographic, for people that perhaps haven't been shooting film before, what do you think the appeal of the Pentax 17 is?
Probably taking more time to take special photos. I know that film has kind of come back into fashion in the last few years. Yeah, it just gives you that like retro vintage look, but without a filter. So
Get the real deal.
Yeah.
Because filters are so popular now. Everyone's putting
They
a filter
are.
over something.
And you can kind of tell now, with them. Like I can tell on Instagram if it's film or they've used a filter. Even if they're really good filters, I can tell,
Well, so did you put any of these film shots up on your own Instagram yet?
Yes.
And what was the response? Could people tell that it was analog film?
Oh, so many people were like, what? That's film? Wow. Like they were like, that's
How
so
did you take that?
Yeah. They're like, what camera? Tell me. And I'm like, you're going to have to go on a waiting list for this new camera.
That's true. And the other thing we might want to highlight is the vertical frame.
Yes.
As it comes out of camera, that fits very well when you post it on Instagram.
Yes, exactly, because people are usually uploading in that format and also on Instagram stories. It works really well.
It's perfect size.
Yep, exactly right.
Ellie, Brad, thanks for coming in today. It was a pleasure to talk with you both.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to be here, Clem.
Great to discuss film and having people come back into film, having people use film for the first time. Thanks again, guys. And we'll just finish with the saying that it's time for film.
Indeed.
It's time for film.
It's time for film.